Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Paul Programs, and today we're going to be taking a look at how you can design some non-playable characters or enemies in games. So, first, we'll start by talking about how the mechanics actually work in some games that you may have seen or played before. Then we'll dive into how I go about the process of just thinking about making an enemy or character, the concept phase, and then finally we're going to jump into RPG Maker and actually put together an enemy real quick so everyone can kind of see how it's done within something like a role-playing game. So, let's get started. Alright, so first we're going to actually take a look at Monster Hunter and how it handles creatures. Here we have pretty much our bestiary of creatures, and we'll take a look at the Great Jagras, and you see there's 3 different tabs for where it lives, what rewards it gets, things like that. But let's actually dive deep in everyone's favorite, let's see, Beetlejuice, whatever he's called. So first we actually have rewards, so these are the things you get from defeating him. Next, on the Physio tab, we have all the different strengths and weaknesses it may have, and it goes over each of the different parts and what those weaknesses and specific strengths are for it. And then lastly, we have our Ecology tab. And here, this just lets you know things like the size the creature can be, how many you may have run into, useful information on it, how to kind of combat it, and then some places where you can actually run into it. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Horizon Zero Dawn and how it handles creatures. So, you can see there's different things like the different parts of a creature, similar to Monster Hunter. Also the different kind of loot you can get off the creature. Again, also similar to Monster Hunter. So you could see, here's a good way of seeing the similarities between games of not really the same type, but how they handle the creatures aren't that different. So with each of the components, you can see there's weaknesses and strengths as well. So this kind of lets the player know what they should be targeting, what they shouldn't, and how to deal with it, and what benefits you get from using certain things and not. While you have the loot below, which lets you know what you can actually get by beating the creature. So this is helpful if you're looking for certain parts, you know which creature you can pretty much hunt to get those specific parts. The last game we're going to take a look at is Persona. So we're going to actually not take a look at the monsters you fight in Persona, but we're actually going to take a look at the different personas you can get, because it kind of shows how an NPC would sort of be handled. And here you can see up top there's the different stats or weaknesses as well too, so you can see what elements it may be strong against, what it may be weak against, what it can completely avoid. Just below that you have each of the differing stats to show where the proficiencies may be, and then under that you have all the different skills that are available, and to the right you have skills that can be earned. So as you actually level up the persona, it has the ability to improve its stats, to get different abilities, and so on and so forth. So it's not like it has a static set of stats similar to creatures in Monster Hunter or Horizon Zero Dawn. Alright, so that was a look at how some games actually create their creatures, monsters, NPCs, how they use different stats to handle things like weakness, pretty much strengths, resistances, things like that. So now that we've actually seen how the pros do it, let's go into how I would actually handle it. So, to get started, what I like to do when creating creatures, monsters, NPCs is kind of come up with a concept of it. So, like say with a D&D character. So say for concept, we're gonna let's take a bard, elf bard, stereotypical, but instead of, doing the performer background, let's give him maybe the criminal background. Maybe he's just had a rough past, or just being a bard getting in trouble. So I may do something like he may be more stealthy and dexterous while also having charisma, less focused on pure strength. Maybe more focused on also having some wisdom here and there, just because he's been around the streets and things like that, so he's a little bit smarter than the average bear. Definitely not focused on book smarts or that, and he's really trying to avoid any heavy lifting as possible. He's lived a more leisurely life, which has led to a lot of the trouble and jail time he's faced here and there. So with that kind of concept, you'll probably want to put some focus on things like dex, like I said. Certain abilities you'll want to focus on, skills, like you may want to make them more stealthy, more acrobatic. Performance is probably more of just how he uses it for certain things, maybe for deception purposes and things like that. So with that, you kind of get the premise of how to start. And then say we want to do like a monster even. Say you have like a volcano level, you'll probably want to focus on maybe a creature that's more fire based. Its weaknesses lie more against water, things like that. But when it comes to fire, it'd be more resistant. Is it a wild creature? So may not be as susceptible to things like brain control or something like that, or may be more susceptible depending on how primitive or something like that. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how I would go about the process of creating a concept for creating a creature and then go about the putting it together. So with that, now let's jump in the RPG Maker and actually make a creature. All right, here we are in RPG Maker. So we're in the database, which you can find up in the tools section, and we're on the enemies tab. So this is where we'll actually do most of our work in terms of creating our creature. I have a name, Jura Leolia. And just a simple note about her, just the concept is that pretty much she's a witch who's kind of been warped by loneliness, and she decides to embrace the cold because of it. So with that said, let's actually look for an image to actually match. So let's just go down to W. I believe there's a witch here. And right now this color scheme doesn't really work for us. We want something that represents a little more of that cold feel. So we'll adjust you and then that. So because she's a witch, we're going to focus more on her being a magic user. So we're going to actually reduce her physical stats. And we'll end up increasing her magical stats. Alright, and we'll give her a little bit more agility and dip in luck. Alright. For now, since we probably treat her like a boss enemy more so than a common foe, make her worth 20 XP and let's say maybe 150 gold. And then we want to decide kind of what items she would drop. So similar to the loot in Monster Hunter. So in this case, let's have her drop a potion, and that one will be pretty much all the time she'll drop a potion. A somewhat rarity, maybe she'll drop. Let's see. Let's say she has nothing too powerful, but let's say it's like a magic wand, and we're going to change that frequency, so maybe it's 1 out of every 10 times. And then last, we'll do something really rare or special, and we'll make that like once out of every so many. So let's go with dragon armor, and we're going to set the frequency to that, just something really high so it's not as common. So if people really want it, they'll have to work for it. Let's go 1 out of every 50. So this way it'll keep the percentages of low. So this way you don't have everybody in the with overpowered armor. Some may not even realize it's available until one day it falls on them. With MP, let's just put a fill for now, and that could be adjusted based on what skills we actually take for her, like attack patterns, which we'll get to that next. But let's look at some traits. So these are like describe her how easy or hard it is for the hit, so on and so forth. Her attack element, because she's ice, we're going to change that to ice. And then let's give her, let's see, state resist, no, state debuff rate, element rate, let's see, parameters, no. Let's see, attack, no, skill, equipment. So we could give her certain equipment, and then there's others. So, but with that, I think giving her attack element is good. Yeah, and that's attack element, but here's where we set her regular element. So if anyone uses ice, it's not working for them. So we'll apply that. And then we want to actually think about how she's going to be attacking. So we'll leave this, but I want her to only really attack more in desperation. So let's set that for her final 15%. But next we want to look at things like ice-based abilities. So anything ice-based, like Ice Breath, we'll give her that. And let's say maybe Ice Breath she always uses while, let's see, maybe we'll say while she's at maybe 65% health all the way to 100. So this will be her most common attack. And there's no real desperation, it's just how she decides to attack people. And just so people understand what's going on, if you go to the skills tab here, you can actually see the skills and it'll show you if there's any costs or anything like that. And you can see it uses a TP cost, which doesn't really matter for enemies. That will matter more for player characters. All right. So then we want to give her a little bit more of a desperation attack. So here's going to be about 35 to 64. Actually, this one will be, let's go 40. All right. And what this attack's going to be is, it's not going to be a regular attack. It's actually going to be a spell. So she's going to, at this point, really be having up on, like, just casting her ice magic and things like that. So if we go down to fire, then we go here. Ah, here it is. So we'll say she's casting, like, ice. And then as she gets to her last bit of life, that's when she kind of ups the ante, essentially. So it's going to be 16 to 39. And this is where she's going to try and cast, like, a real big spell to hit the party. So she'll cast, like, that Blizzard spell. And that pretty much sets one the logic into how she's attacking. But here's where she gets more desperate and, like, she's essentially run out of things to do. But yeah, so this kind of goes with our concept of this Ice Witch. All her stuff's based around this cold. She's definitely focused more on magic than physical. And then she shows it in how she attacks. But with that, that's pretty much how you can put together an enemy using a concept like a witch of loneliness and becoming cold over time in RPG Maker. So, hope that helps everyone in terms of making your own creatures for RPGs or other games. Hopefully you were able to learn about how you can actually make your own creature in a game, design-wise, put them together, use them in something like a role-playing game or action game similar to like Horizon or Monster Hunter. So, hope everyone enjoys, and if you want to see more content like that, hit the link below. And if you like more content like this, subscribe so you can hear when new videos come out. Like all that fun jazz, and thank everyone for watching, and I will catch you all next time.